Hey, welcome back. This episode, we're going to dive into how identity access management can improve your organization's performance, help scope work, improve your understanding of information and cybersecurity, and optimize your business. So on the left side here, we see that we've assigned some people some work. We can see that they had some work that they're responsible for in this column. And we can also start to adjust some of this information. So real quick, go over to this triple ellipses, move to settings. And what we're going to do is just see the functionality of understanding what our identity access management program is doing, the tasks that people have been assigned, and we're gonna improve some things. So we have some abilities here with grouping by, and we can group by work role. We can group by a variety of things. We can group by a control name. And we're going to get new information here, right? We see wireless access and access control for mobile devices was assigned to the risk management team. So this gives us a chance to really understand the intersectionality of work with cybersecurity, making it digestible, making it accessible. And then what we can do is we could say, well, how is this grouped together? We see what our securely provisioned team is doing, and we can change the labels. The labels are going to show up on these items in the field. So we can label it by um, the name, the person, the status, right? In progress, blocked. We can have dates. We could do it by, priority. There's a lot of options for us to do. We can talk about a discussion question, right? We can talk about so many components here. But to keep things simple, let's uh, let's just go ahead and choose the status so we can see who's working on what. We see that some of these are blocked, some of these are in progress. Now you should be able to dive into here. I'm on a virtual machine. Sometimes it's real hard to click on little tiny squares. So we're going to exit this and we're going to go back to our main table. So on our main table here, we have our groups broken down by the NICE framework, right? So they're broken down into groups. The securely provisioned, these are the teams that are in your securely provisioned team, right? So we have risk management, software development, systems architecture, technology, R&D. We have an operate and maintain group, right? And these are the components that are required for an organization using SaaS or computers or technology, right? You have to understand all of these components are going to be part of your organization's mission, even if you're just a small one person or two person team. If you're developing SaaS software, if you're using SaaS software, you should have a plan for these components. So we can start to use Monday.com to integrate the NICE framework, the NIST framework. And if you want to grab any of these resources, right, feel free to go to nist.gov and search for the NICE framework or NIST 853, which is risk management. So we're going to come back here and we're going to work on our operate and maintain group. So our network services team doesn't have anybody on it. We can assign some people to it later, right? We're going to assign a date that we're working on this. We're just going to pick next week, have some planning. We understand what this team does with this description column. Then we come here and we're going to assign some work roles to our network services team, which is in the operate and maintain group in the cybersecurity framework. So we're going to come here. We're going to pick something from the work roles and let's find some network components, right? And maybe we want to bring on a network operations specialist. And that's the one role that has some network in there. This is fine to start. So we're going to come back out. And now we have a role ID. If you've ever done identity access management, using role IDs that are aligned to work roles will help you with your identity access management program grow and scale. So we've done that. We can see what the description is. We can click into here. We can see what they're doing. We can come up a column. We can see that the customer service and technical support has roles, work role IDs that are part of IT program auditor, program manager, project manager, right? We could dive into these if we wanted to, and we could understand what that team is doing. Are they supporting an objective from your organization? What's the progress? What's the impact? What systems that they're responsible for? Who's on call? If there's a distribution email, we even have the ability to alert that team at a quick notice. We can start our time if we're doing defer. And we can push this alert. It'll distribute it to the right channels because it's already been programmed. So if you haven't developed a logging, monitoring, and alerting program, we have integrated logging, monitoring, and alerting associated with controls, role IDs, and identity access management with Monday.com. So what we can do here is then we can start to assign a control name. Now, there's over 1,100 controls in the NIST risk management framework. So we're going to pick just a few to start with because that's where everybody starts, with just a few. So let's come here. Let's check some network control items that can be selected. We see that starting with network, and now this is searched through over 1,100 controls, right? And we're just searching for network. Let's add remote access as a control that this team member is going to be responsible for. Again, role ID OM net1 is going to be responsible for remote access, doing least privilege on our network, right? We're going to also make them responsible for disabling wireless access in this environment. We're going to talk about information exchange. So we're starting to select controls from our list, right? We're also going to have them work on system monitoring, and we've got a good selection. So just a few, right? This team now has 4 controls that they're responsible for. We can take a quick look at what those are. We have a description. We have the discussion about what the control does. We have the related control, CM7. We can look that up in the risk management framework, right? We can find what CM7 is. We can share files. So one of the things about doing audits is making sure that your file is available, right? Proving it, sharing that information, that artifact for working with an auditor or external agency. So we're going to upload that file, and we can do this from all the popular cloud services. We could change the status of this control. So let's just go ahead and select it. We've selected that this is going to be the control. We're going to make this a low priority in our selection list. We're also going to check this box. This selected component lets us know that the control is selected regardless of the status change. Now, one of the important things is we have logging of when this control was last updated. So reducing the time for anybody working on these projects, the logging is included when the work is performed. We can define our system requirements, define requirements here. We can start to do our cost estimate analysis. So let's just go ahead and say this is going to be $350, right? We could talk about our design considerations. And then we can talk about what are the implementations, right? Now, this is wonderful for your project management, right? Who's working on what, how to implement, and then we're going to define our project timeline. So come along on this journey. So we're going to work on this from the 17th through the 24th. Now, the great thing is these changes will replicate for anybody else who has access to this board. We can assign a responsible team. So let's get some team members assigned for this. For this exercise, we're going to pretend that we have a fully functioning enterprise that's ready to go. So we're going to add our systems and requirements team, right? We're going to add our knowledge management team, and so we can add them. And then we're also going to do our training team, so we can make sure that onboarding, education, and awareness grows and adapts with the business. So click back on board settings to go to this menu. We can assign team members here. We can define our maintenance plan, right? So maybe this will review quarterly and annually thereafter. Just something to put on the books. We've got a maintenance plan for how we'll check this. We can go ahead and check our review date, right? And we can come in here, we can work on 2024. We're just going to go ahead and review this on the 15th of 2024 annually, right? We have a unique item ID, perfect for using lookup tables, pivot tables later. Now, everybody's favorite thing is exception management, right? So we can leave this in discussion or in discovery, and then we can choose who is it we're going to make an exception for, right? Maybe the exception right now is in our legal team, right? They have something that just can't comply. That system will need an exception. So now our change advisory board understands what to do because we can see that it impacts or oversee and govern in our organization, right? So strategically, we can start to think at a high level, what cybersecurity framework has been impacted and why so? How long do they need the exception? Maybe just for 3 days, right? Because they're going to be not using the system. We can define an impact to the process. So if something happens, how critical is it, right? The legal team said it was going to be high impact. That's why we're processing the exception. Then we can build our RACI chart. If you've taken your CISSP, RACI is the responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. So who's responsible for implementing this control? We can come back here and search again by roles, right? We don't have to, we just need to know who is responsible, right, by these high level concepts. So our network service team is going to be responsible for it. Now, who's going to be accountable, right? Usually having to do with leadership or management. So let's see, do we have anything in here about leadership? Our executive cyber leadership will be accountable for this. And then who are we going to consult? We're going to consult our systems. So we can look in here for systems. Give this a second. We're going to consult with systems architecture. We're going to consult with systems requirements and planning, right? We're going to also check with our systems administration and development. So now we're starting to build a project. We're starting to integrate enterprise components, right? These are things that penetration testers, cybersecurity professionals need to understand how to do, how to integrate. Who are we going to inform? Let's just go ahead and keep this simple. Let's just inform our knowledge management team. They're going to be responsible for everything else, right? We come back here, click the board settings. We're on this page. Here we have some components about defining our telemetry, right? Do we have visibility of the control that we're doing, right? Yes, we have visibility. Now, on our threat model, how much alerting do we need to do? How important is this? Because it's network, right? Let's go ahead and make this high because your network is going to tell you how your computers are operating, who's using what. We can define our detection methods, right? We'll have conversations about that later. We can develop our telemetry, right? How important is telemetry, right? We'll say that we're going to generate medium telemetry. We can define signals, components, span, and metrics. And then here we can push a report. It's going to go to our Slack and it's going to inform the appropriate teams, right? Based on who we've put together across responsible, accountable, right? We've just generated a report without having to send a single email, and we've built our risk management framework. So we're going to close out of that, and we can see who's responsible for what controls, right? We have our primary controls, right? We can see what they're for. We have our secondary controls. At a glance, we can see what's not done. So what's not done? Remote access, wireless access, information exchange. But what is done? We've selected system monitoring. And we have one inconclusive control, least privilege. So again, we can dive into these controls without leaving the page. So we're able to share these updates, share those artifacts. Let's go ahead and say we've actually integrated this control. We have the proof of the control. We're going to upload that into the files, and we see, our project timeline. So it makes it easier to run a postmortem. Also here in this conversation, we can open up and we can start to have a conversation about that. We have taken a detour into something new. So let's go ahead and write our update. And we've done our update. Now we need to go back to our demonstration workplace. So we're back on our demonstration workplace. We're back to our teams and controls. We're back to the network services. At a glance, we can see what operate and maintain group is doing, what they're responsible for, how they're working together, what they're working on, their identity access management, their role ID for rule and role-based access, right? We've got the description so we can clearly communicate about what the responsibilities are of this team, right? We can reduce confusion about cyber and information security, building an accessible workplace and more effectively talking about cybersecurity. And then we can also share evidence here. And on this side, we can go ahead and generate a report. And same sort of thing, we could configure these reports to go to the place that we want to send them to without having to dig too much into it. This button has not been configured for demonstration purposes, but easy enough to configure for your environment with whatever tools that you're using. So if you're enjoying this, like, comment, and follow along for more.